Okay, Bionicle 3, Web of Shadows. I have a lot of thoughts about this movie, so here we go. This is an almost direct continuation from the last movie, but I say almost, because it takes place right after most of Legends of Metroid Nui, except the very ending in which the Toa free the Matoran and in the process turn into Taraga. So this is a sequel to 99% of Legends of Metroid Nui, except for the last minute in the end. Also, why do they keep calling it Bionicles 2 and 3 when they clearly are prequels? Again, the movie starts with Vakama telling the legend of Bionicle, just like in the previous films. Do we have to listen to this story all over again? I previously mentioned that Mask of Light was made mainly for the fans, so why the hell would you tell a group of people who know a lot about the storyline, the basic legend, over and over and over again? The first scenes show promise, especially with the Makuta in this crystal cell and the Toa going through a storm. After the destructive events from the last film, the Toa find Metroid Nui in rooms and now full of mist and green cobwebs. It creates a creepy atmosphere, I wouldn't lie. Before long, the Toa are paralyzed and get caught by spider-like creatures called Visorak. Their first appearance is definitely kinda scary. The Toa are put into cocoons where they are mutated into half Rahi, half Toa, or Toa Hordika. They are rescued by cute little things called Rahaga, clearly a mix between Rakshi and Turaga. Now we Bionicle fans would find out that they themselves were originally Toa, but that isn't mentioned in the movie. The Visorak are under the obedience of two leaders, one of them Sidorak. At first he seems like a promising villain, but by the end, he proves to be just a dumbass.
If Kitongu wasn't a myth before, he soon will be.
The Rahaga talk about a strange Rahi called Kitongu, who can heal the Toa back into their old forms. However, Matau and Vakama have a massive disagreement which causes them to split. It seems like neither Matau or Vakama really got along, thinking about it now. It's a nice change now, because instead of a unconfident character whining about how he'll never be a real Toa, we now have a much more angrier character.
I can do it alone. I'll show them all.
That is until the Visorak capture him and bring him to the villains. Now, this is where the shit hits the fan, because what happens next may sound pretty familiar. Here we go. In this third entry, the senatorial villains do some talking to Vakama until his eyes change color, signifying that he has turned to the evil side, goes on to destroy a temple in which the movie adopts a screen wipe transition, and finally fights someone close to him on a ledge. Now, can you see what this movie rips off? Well, in case you couldn't tell, let me show you. That's right, Star Wars, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Let's recap, shall we? In this third entry, the senatorial villain does some talking to Anakin Skywalker until his eyes change color, signifying that he has turned to the evil side, goes on to destroy a temple in a movie series famous for screen wipe transitions, and finally fights someone close to him on a ledge. Some may say that I would be overreacting to this, especially since the first movie had obvious similarities to The Lord of the Rings. But Mask of Light was released 2 years after the first entry. Web of Shadows, on the other hand, was released on October 11th, 2005, whilst Revenge of the Sith was released on May 19th. That would give the writers almost a full 5 months to revamp the already existing story involving the Visorak to incorporate Star Wars into the plot. Some people will say that this movie has some good lessons about friendship and how one must stick together in order to accomplish their goals. I can understand where they're coming from, but could you do it without stealing from Star Wars? To see Bionicle go from a completely original storyline to a cheap cash-in of the recent Star Wars craze at the time really makes me cringe. It was for this reason that I disliked this movie upon first viewing. However, upon seeing it again, I was surprised at how much I really enjoyed the first 15 minutes how the Toa reacted to their new forms. The Tora Hordika finally meet this Chitongu, who I got to admit is pretty awesome looking. They did a good job adapting the set for the film. The battle scene at the climax is spectacular and surprisingly violent. God damn! The special effects are almost a mixed bag, but just enough to have the best effects of the Miramax series. I mean, look at this slow motion. They've come a far way from the cheap slow motion in Mask of Light. The Visorak all have a variety which resembles their toy counterparts, not like the Vaki. In that movie, they were just the same model, only recolored. All this is ironic because the same movie has what would be the worst bit of animation in the entire series, in which Rudaka orders the Visorak to jump off the edge. They look like they're walking in the air. Speaking of Rudaka, let's talk about her. Well, I've got to admit that she is one of the most interesting villains in the whole franchise, simply because here, instead of a male villain, we have a female villain. Throughout the film, she sort of has a strange relationship with the Makuta, through taking a bit of the Makuta's prison formed in Bionicle 2 and using them as her heartstone. She's a sort of femme fatale to Sidorak. She's clearly the brains of the Visorak horde.
But I can't defeat him myself!
I know.
It's no wonder she's become a bit of a cult figure among Bionicle fans. The ending, just for the hell of it because it's a prequel. The Tora Hordika defeat Rudaka and change back into their old forms, yet defeating Rudaka frees the Makuta from his cell, thus making way for the first 3 years of Bionicle, which Mask of Light finished out. I'll say it again, but at first I found this to be my least favorite of the franchise. But watching this again, I found it to be better than I remembered. If they didn't have to rip off Revenge of the Sith, I would have liked this movie more. And plus, certain aspects of the Miramax trilogy.
This is the way of the Bionicle. This is the way of the Bionicle. For that is the way of the Bionicle.
Like that last line, were getting pretty old. I believe LEGO shared my criticism because 4 epic years of Bionicle followed without a movie. And what we got was, to be short, controversial among fans. I would have given this movie 2.5 flying Visoraks out of 5, but now I feel that 3.5 out of 5 would be more accurate.